Good morning, poetry lovers. This is our first program of 2022. It's January 8th, and I don't know about you, but I'm raring to go. It is the middle of winter now. Shouldn't be surprising to any of you. The days are short, the temperatures are low, and at least here in Pennsylvania, we have just had our first snowfall. It was less than 2 inches. Nothing to get excited about, but the subjects of our poems today will be winter snow. What else? I told myself I wouldn't do it. I told myself everybody knows it by heart. What am I talking about? Well, I decided to read Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost, of course. And if by chance you haven't heard it before, you need to hear it. It's, as I said, a poem by Frost, and he's the appropriately named poet of winter, if there ever was one. It is in this book that I flashed on the screen a moment before. And this book is quite old. Not quite as old as I am, but getting close. I bought it in 1954, my first year in college. And you might be able to see on the cover that it cost the princely sum of 35 cents. Now, most pocket books at the time were 25 cents. So this was a particularly expensive book, and I'm not quite sure on the budget I was using in college that I could actually afford it, but I bit my tongue and went ahead. The bargain price, however, came with one catch, and you'll see it if you look at the edge of these pages here. They're all brown, aren't they? That's because, what do you expect for 35 cents? You had a high sulfur content paper, and while we all think of books in our libraries as something that should outlast us, I'm sorry, but many of them, especially the old pocket books, the 25 cent, 35 cent category will not outlast you. So here's the first poem for today, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. The late critic Louis Untermeyer said of this poem, few poems have said so much in such a little space. I think I'll leave it at that. Well, in the early 20th century, there was a woman poet named Eleanor Wiley who became well known and widely read in that era. She came from a well-heeled family, went to good schools, starting out mostly in girls' schools, and had a rapid rise as a poet after her college days were over. Not so easy for a woman in those days. She was, as you might say, um, a leftover from the 19th century romantic movement as far as her poetry was concerned. Sadly, she died at the early age of 43 of nephritis. Here's the poem. It's called Velvet Shoes. Let us walk in the white snow in a soundless space, with footsteps quiet and slow at a tranquil pace, under veils of white lace. I shall go shod in silk, and you in wool, white as white cow's milk, more beautiful than the breast of a gull. We shall walk through the still town in a windless peace. We shall step upon white down, upon silver fleece, upon softer than these. We shall walk in velvet shoes wherever we go. Silence will fall like dews on white silence below. We shall walk in the snow. Well, that certainly fulfills most of the criteria for a poem about winter. I was attracted to this poem not just because it speaks of snow, but because of its beautifully carried out and rather complex rhyme scheme, which, however, doesn't call attention to itself. Let me go back to the last stanza. And her stanzas have 5 lines. It's more common in English poetry to have couplets, 2 lines per stanza, or perhaps triplets, or perhaps a quatrain with 4 lines, but 5 lines? Not very common. We shall walk in velvet shoes. Wherever we go, silence will fall like dews on white silence below. We shall walk in the snow. So the second line rhymes with the 4th and 5th lines, and the first line rhymes with the 3rd line. So that's a rather complex rhyme scheme, but she does it so smoothly. She carries it out with so little foldy-roll that you don't really notice what's going on until you analyze the lines. This is a rather difficult poetic scheme, but she makes it seem easy. Even though Eleanor Wiley wrote a lot of what we would call romantic era poetry, she was certainly a liberated woman for her time. I think before she died early, she went through 3 husbands, and including at least 1 poet, maybe 2. But apparently they didn't keep her happy. But that's the problem with poets. I think I better not say any more. Okay. Now, I want to read a poem, if I can find it here, that I wrote for this program. It's called Snowflakes. It is a simple free verse poem, but it, however, does end with a rhyming couplet. Okay. let me shuffle my papers here. And I think I'll have a quick drink of water. My equipment is so primitive, I can't block out the water. But then on the other hand, I can't give you any commercials either, which I'm sure you're very happy about. This poem is called Snowflakes. Floating, lifting, falling, scooting like a hatch of insects over a trout stream, flakes finally find their way to the surface, instantly disappearing as if entering another dimension. Sun, sputtering through intermittent clouds, lights them on their way. Some freakish flakes appear with long tails, not females, not males. Like nothing solid in our view of nature, no flake is like any other. Small, intricate images fluttering in front of my window like fall flies wanting in. The season's first snow, unserious, not accumulating, not melting, not freezing, a premonition of what may and will come. This is winter. This is their home. I hadn't written a poem all during the fall, with concerns about COVID and many other matters to focus on. But I and my family all came down with COVID. And that's between the last program and now. We all recovered and needed no special medication. Not even me. I was sitting in my kitchen when the first snow began to fall in our town after I had recovered. And I watched the strange gyration of the flakes as they hopped about on the breeze that we were having that day. And this poem just took shape in my head. I wrote it down, made a couple of changes in it, probably not enough, but I hope you liked it anyway. That's it for this week. I'll be looking forward to our next session and fervently hope I won't have to call it Blizzard. Goodbye and good luck to you all. Bye now.